Shall I fill the moment for 2 minutes and we'll start at
Yes, you may indeed.
For 2 minutes, I'll do a quick plug. As you know, I like to plug things that we're doing. So just while we're filling the time, just to tell you that Warwick District Council are also organising their second Spark Symposium from February the 22nd to the 26th. It's going to be 15 hours of programming spread across the week, which is talking about the wider cultural and creative things that are happening in our community. So it's a really dip in week. You can actually program it as to what you are interested in. So it's covering everything from new art events to diversity, placemaking. It's going to be a whole day on youth and young people and retention of talent in Leamington. So it's shaping up to be a really exciting programme. We'll also have presentations on City of Culture and the Commonwealth Games. So anybody who's actually following any social media, we have the WDC Arts News page on Facebook. And obviously the Leamington Society also, I'm sure, will put something, Archie wherever he is, we'll put something in the newsletter. So it's a really interesting way to dip in and see what's happening on the wider context. If you're interested in arts, heritage, culture, education, then this is a really good week for you to programme some talks you might be interested in.
Right. I think we can begin. Just change it to that. I think we can begin now because there's a pause in people coming. We have 83 people, and that doesn't include all the pairs of you and others who are joining on the same laptop. Welcome to you all. My name is Sydney. I'm the chairman of the Leamington Society, and we are very honoured and delighted to have with us tonight Councillor Andrew Day, who I can now see at last on my screen. Andrew is the leader of Warwick District Council. As many of you may know, I am actually a district councillor, so I can tell you that I've experienced Andrew, as it were, firsthand in action. He became leader of the council in 2019 following the local elections and has brought a breath of fresh air and a new approach to leadership. Like all of you, the district council has had an amazing year, one that couldn't have been foreseen 2 years ago, but has done, I think, very well. And I'm sure Andrew is going to try and make us all cheerful and positive by looking ahead to the rest of this year, 2021, as he talks about the vision and hopes for Royal Leamington Spa, which won't be just about the 10 million for the Future High Streets Fund or the Creative Quarter, but I believe he will touch on them. Now, if you have a question, could you please type it in the chat? I'm not sure whether we're going to have lots of questions or not very many. Carol will be recording, well, we'll be scanning the chat. And at the end, Andrew, am I right in thinking you will be happy to answer questions?
I'd be delighted to, Sydney, absolutely delighted. And I've actually got some questions of my own to ask, so I'd be very pleased for the Society's views on one or two matters as well.
Oh, thank you. For the questions, in case some overlap, Carol will actually ask the questions, but then when Andrew's asking questions, you can all unmute yourselves. Meanwhile, welcome to you, Andrew. You have got permission to share your screen. I'm going to ask everybody else if they will make sure they are all muted. Anybody who's not, I will mute. And do you think you could all take your videos off as well? Because with so many people using Zoom, it does make a difference to the quality of the broadcast. At that point, I shall switch off as well. Over to you, Andrew, and thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Sydney. It's a privilege to be here and a great opportunity for me, fresh out of meetings with the ministry as well today, to update the society and share views and get feedback. And this is a very fast-moving and evolving set of projects. So it's an exciting year ahead. If there is to be a silver lining from COVID, it's that we've been able to really put the focus on regeneration and plans for Leamington Spa and other areas as well. And I'm very pleased to be able to hopefully set them out in a coherent manner tonight. What I've done is I've pulled together a deck of slides from all over the place. So they may seem a little higgledy-piggledy, but hopefully they'll give you a sensible overview. And if I may, I will endeavour just now to share my screen and start that process. If I'm lucky, here we go. And please just confirm, Sydney, that you can in fact see the screen.
Yes.
Yes, I can see the screen.
Hopefully there should be a PowerPoint coming up. There we go. Is that viewable for all?
Yes, certainly
Wow.
viewable for me.
That's amazing. Very good. Well, I'm much relieved. So here we are. Now, I think the first thing to say is that we are very close to the Commonwealth Games. We have a City of Culture up the road in Coventry, which will also have a very big impact in Leamington Spa. And so there's plenty to look forward to once we have our vaccinations and we can get beyond the COVID world that we're presently living in. I think in many respects, the joint, and it's lovely to see the Mayor here this evening as well, because I think the levels of cooperation being generated across the district to get through COVID is in fact propelling us well into the year ahead and these regeneration plans and implementing these regeneration plans. And it's equally important that cooperation with our town councils, and particularly in this case, Leamington Town Council. So it's good to see you here as well, Susan. So I think if I could just sort of walk you through our town centre projects today, and they will, and if I may, I'll do my best to sort of show how they're connected. And they'll provide something of an update for you, slide by slide, on certainly the projects related to the Commonwealth Games, which is not just a year and a half, a year and a quarter away, and what we're doing there to prepare for them, but also the legacy we're expecting from them. To talk more about the town centre wayfinding project. Some of you may be already engaged or involved in that. That's involving improvement to our signage. Then specifically to address the Future High Streets Fund, which is a major initiative, and the marvellous news we had as Christmas, just before on Christmas Eve, about the grant for £10 million, but it is in fact a £15 million programme, and there is other funding we're putting in place there. And then also to talk more about the Creative Quarter, the first phase you will be aware of that we're bringing forward through planning, etc., at Spencer's Yard, but we're now starting to sharpen some focus on the following phases. And also just have a reminder for those who didn't get a chance to see it around the Paint the Yard initiative in Spencer's Yard. So we'll also cover Covent Garden and Riverside House and where we're at with those projects, so everyone can just reflect and refresh their thinking there. So now the test is, can I move forward slide by slide? Now, if I can move that, we'll be doing well. Very good. So this is hopefully familiar to you, and some of you have already possibly seen this slide before, but it does give you something of an overview, a patchwork quilt, I like to think of it as, of what we've got before us for Royal Leamington Spa. You can see from the slide that there's a range of projects that will transform our town centre and our relationship with it, I should stress. Some are more advanced than others, and it's those that I'm going to concentrate on updating you on this evening. But we're also looking to transform the physical infrastructure to some of our existing buildings, such as those I've mentioned already around Spencer's Yard. And we're keen to develop more and ways of modal changes, it's called, it's an awful phrase, of actually traveling in and around our town so that we can address climate change, but also just make it friendlier and easier to connect the north with the south, the east with the west, and make it a very, very enjoyable place to come and visit and spend time whether you're shopping or enjoying the parks. There are two highlighted areas on this map in blue, and you can see there, I'm going to try and use my cursor. I'll take you through these if I may. So the two highlighted areas in blue are really around addressing the cycle routes and in and out of town. And you can see these here in the top and bottom. Now, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor moving around, but I'm going to move everyone's faces so I can see it as well. So there's north and to the west. Now, it's important because these also connect so far as school access and wider access, and it's really about making it safe and so people can travel confidently in and out of the town. Now, we're also going to be, there are confidential projects that we're also in some early discussions on, but I will do my very best to share them with you here. So the range, you're already aware, obviously, I think, of the work, and I'll look at in some detail of project number 1 here. This is related to the Commonwealth Games, and it's the Station Forecourt, and I'll show you some slides and some concepts on that in a moment. But there's also areas of work to be done with regard to our wayfinding. Spencer's Yard there is site number 3, which I hope you can see here in blue. We've got Court Street, of course, site number 4, presently car parks. A beautiful town hall, which I'm missing desperately, and I think many others are too. And then, of course, the 6th project I related was around our sustainable movement network, as our officers like to call it. And there are some confidential projects which I'll talk to you about. And then beyond that, we've got the Bath Street improvements, which is a scheme the County Council is working on. We've got Covent Garden, of course, where our poor car park is falling down piece by piece. And we've got Riverside House, which is virtually empty presently. So if I could step you on then, and we look now at, hope I can do this properly. I'm just going to take us there. How am I going? No, that doesn't want to move. How about that? Cool, good, okay. So this is a view for you of the Commonwealth Games projects and the map of how they're going to lay out. Now, of course, you're familiar with Victoria Park, and here the various greens, and we've got plans there, as you know, and in fact they're underway, some in fact completed, to upgrade those surfaces. We're also going to have floodlighting installed there, and there will be interior improvements made to the pavilion there behind, as you can see here in the dark section, you know all too well, and the clubhouse, and that's, you know, Wi-Fi provision and all, oh gosh, and all the sorts of things we're going to need. I'm sorry about that. We've got also car parking improvements and improvements on Princess Drive, even for the car parks. There's going to be repairs to the tennis courts and outdoor gym facilities, play equipment, etc., some of which is now being ordered and will be installed as soon as possible. We've got tennis pavilion and public toilets improvements as well. So it's actually a chance to renew and rejuvenate what will be, I hope, a wonderful legacy after the Commonwealth Games for us as well. Now, the other parts to this to remember too is that there's a serious investment underway, if you like, for the last mile when our guests arrive. Now, we're expecting between 5,000 and 10,000 people a day to come and view the lawn bowls. That was the predictions before COVID. Assuming we're through the other side of it, who knows? But that's a significant footfall coming from the station. So we need to help that access through to Victoria Park and provide the necessary amenities. Now, we're doing that by upgrading the underpass and providing some additional ways of sustainable transport into the town. They are significant improvements also coming, as you'll see in a minute, to the station forecourt, and these will have long-term benefits for us. But we're also mindful of the connectivity then around from Leamington to Warwick, and what opportunities we might be able to use to create a Commonwealth Park. Now, we are all familiar with the River Lem, but on the other side of Victoria Park, there is an opportunity to regenerate this area. So there's Riverside House, and there's Adelaide Road. And as you can see here, there's a stretch running along the river that gets us all the way to Warwick. So what we've got in mind are some improvements possibly here to link us with the nature, and provide some more playing fields and facilities and walkways, so that we'll be able to walk along the river all the way through to Warwick. This is early stage developments. There are new footpaths, a cycleway, serious legacy. So we'll be able to, and who knows, also some biodiversity, opportunities to improve if you like, the quality of the landscape through there. So it will be, and you'll be hearing a lot more about this. It's very early days. Elements such as shelters, education areas, observation decks, some of the elements we've also come very familiar with in Newbold Common, for example. So that's something we're trying to progress over this coming year, and there will be early consultations on it. So the Commonwealth Games isn't just about Victoria Park, it's about what's happening on the other side of the river. And as you'll see when I come to talk about Riverside House a bit more, we've got some further thinking to share. No pictures just yet on that as well. This is a station. Many of you, of course, will be familiar with this. If you are flying as a drone, so to speak, from on high, just to highlight the station entrances here, as we know, and this is the underpass, as we know, and this is, the station approach and all the new housing and car parking that's been put in there. And of course, there's a new and improved footway connection here through to Lower Avenue. But the challenge with us here is around making the arrival at Leamington Station work better. So whether you're arriving as, if you like, a transport hub, so whether you're coming to drop people off and collect them from the station on a short-term basis, whether you're arriving through other modes of public transport, and more particularly when you do arrive on the trains, your access through in an attractive and safe way into town. So this link is going to be important for us. We're working obviously with the County Council and with Chiltern Railways to begin. This work has been started, and there'll be further evidence of that on site fairly soon. But it's a combination of funds. The district, we put some money into this. We've also had money through the local growth fund that's being delivered through the Coventry and Warwickshire Local Enterprise Partnership. And there's been other funding we've been able to secure from the Department of Transport. But what does it look like? So so there's an image, if you like, of an artist's impression with more trees, places to sit, a better segregation with regard to transport, improved, if you like, surfaces, signage, and notices. So, and you can see here, this is the underpass through to the town. So it doesn't, I mean, I think you get a better view of the beautiful station we've got, and gives it a better context. So as with all artists' impressions, they come with caveats, but I hope you can see some of the ambition here. There will also be better provision for electric taxi charging. There'll be provision for bicycles and bicycle storage. And better, as I said earlier, waiting arrangements. So instead of it being largely a car park full of cars there all day, it'll be more of a forecourt and a transport hub to enable us all to move more easily in and out of the station. But this is early days artist's impressions of a much enlivened and hopefully brighter experience. Now, I'm told that is actually LED lighting in the underpass, and that you can program it with different effects depending on the time of day. I hope no one suffers from epilepsy or anything, because I've got some concerns about that myself, but we'll see. The detailed designs will be coming forward for consultation. But the point is that construction on this will start in late summer this year. There are further details on our website as well for this, there will, and the next stage for us is really around undertaking detailed surveys, finalising the designs, and then completing the appointment of contractors. So you'll see action there this year. But hopefully it will not be a wet and dreary experience as it has been for me, at least on one or two occasions in the past. Now, you'll be familiar, of course, with Covent Garden Car Park and Riverside House. We are reviewing our planning consents on both these sites and have been now for some time. The principal driver, as Sydney World knows, is to bring forward greater public benefit from these two sites. This council is very keen, for example, on Riverside House, to see a more ecologically sustainable development for housing there that delivers a full 40% of affordable housing, and that protects all the listed trees, particularly the copper beeches on the main road.
Yay!
Thought you'd like that. And it's proving an interesting challenge, but we're really keen to bring forward ideas for council to consider this spring. So just bear with us. I know it's been a while, but it's been a very complicated exercise. The other joy we're trying to achieve is to have public access through that site down to the Commonwealth Park, Adelaide Road, and possibly even a bridge over into Victoria Park. So it will really open up and connect what is a beautiful part of town, and give us an exemplar site that we can all be very proud of as a council development. So just bear with me. They're big aspirations, but we're working very hard on it. So far as our Covent Garden site is concerned, we are really keen, obviously, to resolve the car park, but possibly a different form of car park. We're re-examining just what is the parking demand, whether too there might be a better demand for undercover cycle storage, where you can properly bring your bikes and lock them up and get support in getting them fixed and whatever. There are good examples of those in other towns and cities. So we're looking at those at the moment. Meeting also, EV charging and making it more, environmentally friendly through solar panels. What other ways can we generate and make the whole building more sustainable? But we're also looking at the site, rather than for council officers, what's possible there for wider public benefit? Is it an opportunity for us to bring together, doctors, citizens' advice, a post office facility, although I do rather like it in the town hall at the moment. But that whole site should be committed to greater public benefit rather than receipt to the council. And so there's a lot of work going into that, and how we could come forward with plans that will be acceptable to council, but also show the commitment we've got to regenerating and providing a public resource there in Leamington Spa, at the top end of Leamington Spa. What I love is the markets there, and it would be fantastic if this site wasn't an island, but properly permeates and connects through the streetscape, and we get a chance to support the recreation of our Covent Garden market spaces. So we're really trying to approach that fresh. So please bear with us. There's more coming, but I hope that's given you a little bit of a taster for what we're planning. I'm sorry if I'm taking too long here, but I'll rattle through these. We've got obviously the town centre challenge in communication terms is we've got a lot of different signage, and this gets somewhat confusing if you're not familiar with it day in and day out. And I suspect for most of us, we get used to these things. But for visitors arriving from the station, for example, you can see there the monolith in the middle, and we've got these various other interesting signs. Some are quite interesting in details and information, but there are so many better and more consistent ways now of actually providing visitors with the key information that they need about the services we're offering, if it's car parking, where they can access and view some of our beautiful facilities and parks. So this is an area that we'll explore and consult with you on, is actually what types of signage are the most accessible. So not just but for people with visual impairment and other You know, so we welcome a really good diverse range of visitors and residents. So how do we go with letting people know where they are and where they want to get to? What sorts of signage is appropriate given the quality of the architecture and the streetscapes we have in Leamington? And these are just picked off examples of all the different formats, whether they're monoliths, finger posts, maps, notice boards, or historical trails. We're going to see more of that is being funded by the Commonwealth Games grant money that we've got, and will be part of our permanent legacy, if you like, from that whole project. Now, the plans will be finalised, and again, we're wanting them to be put in place over this summer, early autumn. So more to follow on that. But the main point, the good news was, of course, what's happening with our Future High Streets Fund. Now, this was a competitive fund that we bid for, and we were down to the last 100 towns, and along with Nuneaton, we were selected in Warwickshire, and were granted just over £10 million towards the scheme. Now, it's altogether, it's about 14.5 million that we were seeking from government, and so we're going to be short, Sydney, so we better sharpen our pencils, by about just over 4.5 million from the government funding. But the budgets that are coming forward to Warwick District Council next month tie in our £2 million that we're committed to, and we're out to try and seek other funding from the LEP and from other funding partners, County Council, etc., to get the total programme up, which will be delivered between now and 2024, to £29.5 million of capital investment into Leamington Spa. Its objectives are to provide infrastructure for sustainable, connected town centre living. And so we were very pleased to get off to a good start with that government support, which represents about, by the way, about 70% of the total bid that we asked them for. Now, what's going to be in this scheme? Now, you'll be familiar with these locations, of course, but the key initiatives focus on the town hall creative hub, and we're looking at options to maintain the character, obviously, of the building, but to make best of use of it as a significant asset in our town centre. So it can be a hub for the creatives, businesses, and the residents in the town to visit and experience not just the building, but also be a beacon for what the qualities of the town as a creative and innovative community that we have. And this is, if you like, reimagining our town hall in a modern context. Further on, we've got Spencer's Yard, which is the first phase of our Creative Quarter program. This will provide workspaces and embed our creative communities in Leamington Spa. And as you'll be familiar, we have a significant cluster of digital creative businesses, and particularly in the games sector, and who are looking for spaces and have got interest here. And I'll show you some images of what's coming forward there and the planning applications, which I believe have been submitted just recently. This cluster is important for local employment, for the viability of the town, but it then works very well with some of the other elements that we're bringing on, as I mentioned earlier, about the town hall, but also, as you'll see, with the wider provisions for the digital business community. The third element is our sustainable movement network. That's another, I love the three. The local government does that in 3 words, just about for everything. So it's obtaining this funding enables us to actually bring on some cycle routes and improve our connectivity through the town centre. Clearly, this is being worked on and developed very closely with the County Council, and I'm aware of concerns from a number of stakeholders, and so we're continuing our consulting and wanting to make sure we get this absolutely right. Can I just say, though, it is not simply a cycle project. This is around all forms of making movement easier, whether it's simply getting pedestrians across road junctions and pavements being wide enough, and all those sorts of logistical questions, so that it's perfectly possible to enjoy a day in town without fearing for your life. even if it is from a bicycle. So you're familiar, of course, with the Leamington Creative Quarter, I assume. These are some of the slides of building to the. I've got a bright new future coming forward, I think. So you'll be familiar, of course, with the railway bridge, and I probably don't need to introduce these sites to you, but these are as they stand now. So it emphasises in many respects the urgent need for investment and regeneration, particularly after the weather we're having this winter. If I may then, you'll see here, just sort of from an overview perspective at the top, we've clearly got our town hall as a civic building and being reimagined, as I explained. Then we have our royal pump rooms, and the assembly room will be a place I expect we're going to be meeting as a council, for example, Sydney, as we go ahead with our plans for the town hall. There is a big opportunity here around the post office, the original post office, you know, where we went to post all our letters and sort our gyros out and whatnot, is now vacant. So we're looking at bringing that in as part of the Future High Streets Fund. That's one of the projects, but also looking at the sorting office behind. Now, whether it's a design hotel or more space for digital businesses or flats and other accommodation, these options are being looked at because we need to bring in some private sector investment. What that would mean, and the challenge for us is we've got a site in mind to offer to the post office to relocate them, not just from Leamington, but from Warwick, bringing them together out on one of the industrial parks out near where I live in Bishop's Touchbrook, Touchbrook Park, with a view that will be a much more efficient business option for them. And we're in early discussions with them on that. But getting the right development concept and proposals here is something we'd want to consult on. But we're trying to get some interest and see where that takes us. Obviously, the colonnade has got work going on presently, as you're very familiar, but we're focusing here on the Spencer's Yard element, which I'm trying to edge off, and we'll look at carefully, and particularly changing the way we access that and use that space presently. And it was fascinating to see how the Paint the Yard program changed people's approach and thinking, I think, around the, got too far there, around that space, and we'll look more at that. We've got the Bath Place car park and how that relates then, of course, to the station, which you see here, and what happens in this, what I call car wash corner presently. And we've had all sorts of interest in building yet more student accommodation, which we've resisted. But maybe there's some alternatives for accommodation that will be appropriate. Of course, we too have Bar Street itself, the Court Street car park, and Althorpe Street and the social exchange there. And this is where our eye is now turning, because these plans are being formed, and once through planning and underway, we want to get a clear focus on what the next phase will be for the Creative Quarter program. So if I'm sorry to escape, but I'll keep moving. An idea, for example, under the Future to High Streets Fund is, oh gosh, I'm sorry, my mouse keeps jumping this around, is that we'll look, this is the back of the town hall. Some of you may be familiar here. So here's Regent's Grove, Holly Walk. So coming and looking at setting up a simple point like a cycle shed. So this is a place where you could come and store your bicycles securely. You can have them repaired and serviced and so on. So making it easy for people to travel into town, keep their bikes nice and dry, maybe even get their service done, tires sorted out or whatever, and then enjoy the benefits of the town or activities in the town hall. So this is what it looks like presently. The top screen. This is an artist's impression. Now, of course, this is subject to planning, subject to consultation, etc. And one of the main challenges we've had in the town hall is around accessibility and how we enable residents to access the top floors, given the quality and size of the lift that we've got. What initial concepts we're looking at is using a space presently, not all at the back of the town hall, to actually install a new lift arrangement that will enable people to access. Again, this will take more consultation, but it's just an initial concept, and this is part of opening up all elements of the town hall to wider public benefit. pressing on, and you remember I talked earlier just a moment ago about the Creative Quarter and Spencer's Yard. And this is really just trying to show you a little of what's happening there. Now, this is the United Reformed Church, the big yellow building here, which you're familiar with. And it's difficult for you to see these concepts of what will be done in the inside, but we have interest from a major games company in taking over that building and turning it into their office spaces. And I'll show you some more of those drawings in a moment. But you can see the main yard area is then available for a wider performance and public use. These buildings, the Dole office, the camouflage, which is brilliant history on this, the camouflage buildings, which have been painted up at the moment, are all going to also be converted for office by creative businesses and startups. What this effectively does is it brings footfall back into this area, and it enables the public to access and use it. The whole arrival points and how you will come into the yard will be changed, as you'll see in a moment. But this is the first phase that is coming towards before the planning committee over the next few 3 months. So you can see the present state of the URC, and actually it's really getting quite urgent that matters are dealt with. You can see the dilapidation, the water ingress that we've got. It is clearly a flagship building, and it does have some very interesting architectural features. Not least, I'm particularly quite struck by this ceiling. I mean, for many of you familiar with this, but for me, I wasn't. So, and it's been there derelict for many, many years now. I think 17 years in total since the first thoughts were about the bringing forward regeneration of this part of town. So what we're looking at, this is a bigger picture of what was here before. If you imagine flying into the URC, this will come forward in the planning, but that's the ceiling still intact and viewable. But this is how, don't you love to work on a beanbag? Amazing. But anyway, so here they are. This is the sort of configuration, obviously in a COVID safe environment, that the games community likes to use, cluster working and so on. But the atrium that is created all the way through to the basement, and they like the idea of these dark areas that are that can be used for all sorts of production purposes and so on. As so it's perfect for this, and I think quite an attractive solution from the interior side. Exterior wise, there should be no change. The windows and the view will be maintained and obviously refurbished and better presented. But you can get a sense of other spaces that have done this sort of thing elsewhere in churches and so forth. So hopefully you get a sense of what's coming forward in the detailed plans, and we obviously welcome your comments and thoughts there. But from an outside point of view, Spencer's Yard then becomes a performance space. It can be, you know, we can have all sorts of events and activities, and it's got enormous potential, we believe, as a cultural destination. And what we're keen to do is support funding a program of events and activities that are appropriate to that space, to introduce people to it and start using the area in a different way. So we're working very closely, obviously, with the Loft Theatre, which is literally there behind the foods and drinks signs, so that we do not interfere or inhibit their program of activities, of course. But it's important that we put some infrastructure in here, whether it's a supply of electricity, you know, anchor points for banners, tents coverings, and enabling it to effectively pop up for all sorts of events and activities at different times in the year. And I don't know how many of you managed to get to it, but the paint, the yard that Brink did was amazing. I was really quite moved by some of this imagery. So it's not necessarily to everyone's taste, but how timely celebration of the, you know, the NHS and our critical workers, and the peregrines and our pigeons, bless them, but also taking another view of the whole camouflage building factory. So that it just made us, I think about that space very differently. Now, much of that's not going to remain, because these buildings will be obviously refurbed and made good and safe for these new offices. So given the time that we have, and there are loads and loads of related opportunities, which I could cover in detail, but just wanted to show you something of the ambition that we've got to seize every opportunity to continue to improve our town and make it a great place for us all. You know, we've got other things going on. You're all familiar, I'm sure, with the plans and the consultations around Newbold Common, and a number of funding bids to other external agencies are being submitted now. We've got that Commonwealth Park, as I mentioned earlier. We're working closely with the County Council on the schemes at Bath Street and Emscott Road. We're also working with Coventry with regard to their, you may not be familiar with this, but they've been awarded funding for new electric buses. And one of the routes will bring electric buses into Leamington Spa, and we need to sort out a charging station, etc., for that to happen. And there are connecting principal cycleways to Kenilworth, for example, that are now funded and will be being built, the K2L scheme as it's known. And there's extensions to the national cycle route over the Fossway and beyond out to Draycote Water. This will see a bridge, for example, being constructed by HS2, restoring an old railway bridge, interestingly, over the Fossway. So you'll be able to cycle continuously on the old railway line out to Draycote Water. We've got, for example, 2 in Leamington itself, work underway right now on the new Leamington Spa laboratory, what was known as the Mega Lab. And that's important to us. It's 2,000 jobs, but it will be a major testing centre, not just for COVID, but for the medical services for cancer and all the testing programs that are necessary across England. So it's a big coup for us for the jobs and for Spa Park and having that redone. But we've also got some ideas around fun ones. Princess Drive Bridge, and just an idea, the Commonwealth Games, that's what you'd be greeted with presently, not an altogether attractive image, particularly in the wet. But we've seen elsewhere that there have been schemes to actually paint these bridges in the Victorian formats to try and bring back some of their original design characteristics. And so bravely, we're engaging Network Rail to see whether we could do something like this. And this is just fanciful at the moment, but they're live bridges as you see them. They've been done elsewhere. So you may have a view on that, and I'd welcome your comments in a moment. But it's an opportunity because we've also got, and you may not be aware of this, the Commonwealth Games men's cycle race is actually going to have a start and finish in Warwick, of course, but it's going to come through the town centre in Leamington Spa. So is that really what we want the rest of the world to see? When we could do, with a coat of paint and some careful design, we could do something that would make it a little more interesting, certainly, and attractive. Anyway, just having some fun there. But also to move on to things much more controversial for you, and this is where I'd like some feedback, please, Sydney, and I'm really sharing this here for the first time. We've had this bizarre situation at the moment where half the parade's been closed. There'd been talk about whether or not that's been for the good or for the best, and I'm aware of controversies in the past. But this is an example here around, because some of the funding will help us for the future high streets around the front areas around the town hall and at the end of Regent's Grove, and how we improve public access into the town hall, for example. So we've got here what's happened in Kidderminster, and you can see some of the treatment that. So you've got it used to simply be a road junction there on the left, as you can see. I'll flick over that one here. They too have their statue. I think ours is much finer, but there you are. And then what they've done here to try and enhance some of the surfaces and approach. And what that does is it changes it from being simply a road into more of a shared space. And there could be ways in which that's managed differently so that it enables us to engage more with, that I think a very attractive area in Leamington. Just a thought. I was fascinated too, if I may, I don't know if you've been reading, but the Champs-Élysées in Paris, they're going to be turning and investing in that to make it more of a sort of garden boulevard, I think it's being described, rather than a sort of a main road. So I'm not going to mention the P word, pedestrianisation, because that's not what I'm talking about. But maybe there's some opportunities for just us to reimagine the parade as a destination that supports and enables us to appreciate some of the architecture and the spaces there, and maybe use it in a slightly different way than we do presently. Just some thoughts. So there we are. I would welcome questions, Sydney, and I hope that's inspired some some feedback and some comments. And if I'm able to, I will stop sharing, save you being lost in the PowerPoint. Here we are. Thank you, Sydney.
Thank you very, very much indeed, Andrew. That was, yeah, quite something. Now, Carol, you have been tracking the questions, haven't you, on chat? Would you like?
Sorry, yeah, there's some really good, sorry, my apologies, there's some really good questions, and I think it'd be really interesting to know from you, Andrew, how people who don't get an opportunity to ask now, or how they can be involved at a later point, because that was really exciting to see so much happening, and I think there's some really wonderful chat coming on, so I'm going to dive straight into it because there's quite a few questions. Overall, most people are actually thinking it's very exciting. So starting with number one, Timothy Griffiths wondered what the effect is going to be on the plans after the government pushes through the plans for unitary councils. That's
Okay.
how you want to start.
Gosh, right, dive into the deep end there. Local government reform, the white paper is not now expected until after the elections, which are still scheduled for May. So we wait with bated breath for a possible another U-turn, and we've seen plenty of those. There's lots of speculation about the elections being postponed to the summer or maybe even the autumn, but we're not expecting the government white paper before then. In the meantime, the district council is actually bringing forward plans next month to merge with Stratford District Council. So that's creating a larger district council, not a unitary council, but it does position us very well if we wish to put forward proposals other than a county-wide unitary, so a South Warwickshire unitary. Now, councillors have been working very hard on that. There will be opportunities for residents to contribute to that debate other than through their councillors. We've had some early consultations underway and focus groups, but we're going to respond to what our residents want rather than, and it will be a brand new council if it does proceed. So it's not the county council taking over the district councils, and it's not the district councils taking over half the county council. It is a completely new council that will be designed in quite a different way. And I could go on, but I won't bore you. So to answer the specific question, none of these proposals here will be changed by any change in local government. That many of them are well advanced now. In fact, some are gaining planning consent, and this year will be very busy. I'm taking Gordon Brown's approach to, as he did with aircraft carriers, you may recall, to get everything locked into contract so that whatever changes in local government might come, it's more difficult for us for future local councils to change them. So we get it locked down now. So this year is going to be very busy.
Okay, generally everyone's very excited by the bridge idea. I know the Leamington Society have been very, very involved in and wanting that to happen over many years. Marianne can tell you the whole history, but that has had a huge amount of enthusiasm. Nick Charlton would like to know, is the parade likely to remain pedestrianised post-COVID? And if so, can traffic flows around the central block be able to cope?
Yeah, I'm actually quite keen that we open the traffic flows across the parade properly and make all that work somewhat better right now. But again, I'm not have anything to do with as a highways authority. We can just lobby our county councillors for that one. But I would say I think what's happened with the parade has certainly enabled us to pause and reflect and think that maybe it needs to be dealt with differently. Retail as an offer has changed, and how do we make that really beautiful part of town a better destination? And some of that might be around reimagining the use of the main parade, whether we have any public vehicles going up and down there, or whether it's do we want buses there? Should there, the bus stations be elsewhere? That might improve things like our air quality. So that's all being re-examined. I can't give you a definitive answer, but it is being re-examined. And again, would be brought forward for consultation, Carol.
Okay. Louisa Radis is saying, asked, is there any chance of having a living wall, like a vertical garden on the multi-storey car park, like the one at National Grid?
Yes.
I like the idea.
Yes, I love it. No, I love it. I mean, all of that about bringing green back into town, and we're so blessed with our gardens and parks. Wouldn't it be wonderful if that could be expressed in some of our beautiful streetscapes as well, and some of our not so beautiful streetscapes that would be so refreshed, I think, with things like a living wall. Yes, in short answer.
Marianne Pitts would like to know how many people are expected to arrive by bike rather than car or public transport. I presume that's to the Commonwealth Games when you said the figure.
We don't know. That's a good question. I think in short order, all modes of transport we're expecting to have changed post-COVID. We are certainly seeing more residents cycling. What we may see is people arriving, for example, to the station by train, and then we want to be able to have a provision for a public bike scheme, for example, so that they can then take a bike, like a Boris bike equivalent or whatever it is these days, and get around town. And so we're trying to join things up, is the short answer, and make people less reliant on travel by car.
Cool. Neil and Glita Bradley and several others have asked about artist studios. They've wondered if there was some possibility of having some affordable ones with workshops and sale points at Covent Garden. Timothy also wondered if there was a possibility of the Crown buildings being repurposed for this.
I can't be sure there. Covent Garden, I'd be surprised just where it's at. I think the likely destinations are more south of the river. The live work artist studios are definitely on the schedule. They've also been discussed at the LEP. And we were looking at the Bath Place car park, but unfortunately the sewers there make, if you're familiar with it, it's got a really big sewerage hub underneath there, means access prevents the sort of development of that area. But possibly what I call the car wash site on the other side or in that domain might offer opportunities. But it makes sense for it to be close to the creative quarter. So there's that sense of like they've got at the the market, the Alti markets. There's a sense of community that clusters around those spaces. So how do we foster that? And that's definitely on the schedule.
Susan Rasmussen and several others really felt that to attract more tourists, we need at least one smart hotel in the town centre, which would be ideal to have a spa. High-end hotels are major employers and become destinations in themselves. Several people have asked the question, can we return the spa and take some inspiration from Bath and Buxton?
Why not? Absolutely. I mean, I think the sourcing office presents, on the canal there, overlooking, Jefferson Gardens, it's most attractive location. I think it presents the best opportunity location-wise. It's the business model that's really challenged, and a lot of the hotel chains are very challenged financially at the moment. And I'm aware that, for example, Warwick District and Leamington in particular, they class it as underbedded. That's a phrase that I've not come across before my time as a councillor, but so that essentially what that means is we don't have enough hotel beds to support our hospitality and tourism interest, and there's a heavy demand for them. So whether it's in town or just out of town, we'll be looking at opportunities to build new hotels, and I'm hopeful we'll have one possibly built out of town before the Commonwealth Games.
That sounds exciting. Louise Gould mentioned that a lot of the discussion you've just had is focused on developing and improving the green spaces in the south of the town. Are there any plans to improve the green spaces buildings in the north of the town?
Good question. Obviously, we're doing the tennis courts at the north of the town presently, and I think there's an opportunity altogether to improve the park there. And I think the cycleway connections through to Kenilworth gives us a chance to re-examine some of the, if you like, the public realm spaces. So they're not technically parks, but I think we can re-examine them and reintroduce some more greenery as well along some of those routes. But I'd be grateful for suggestions and ideas for specific areas or places that you'd like to see looked at.
Andrew mentioned, could the post office become a modern health spa to match Bath's offering? So I'll leave that question there because we've got another one. Following on, Marianne Pitts wondered, could we please have access through the colonnade past the Loft Theatre to Spencer's Yard? The geography fits okay.
Yes, well, that's an old chestnut. We've been really working, and in fact we tried to buy that unsuccessfully. And as you know, the old colonnade is being redeveloped for accommodation, and the owners have been resisting our efforts. So an alternate is to find another pedestrian access over the river that bypasses, if he goes around, that comes out the other side near the pump rooms. And that's a funding challenge for us. But when you go and you stand at the back of Spencer's Yard and you look across, it's just in touching distance. It's so tempting, and you really, to get through to the pump room gardens would be superb from there. So we haven't lost that ambition, but we can't use the colonnade, unfortunately.
Andrew Savage said Victoria Bridge, Mill Bridge and the church offer a great opportunity of tasteful and spectacular LED lighting.
Yeah.
Is this being considered? Great
idea. Like it, Andrew. Yeah, no, I think we should. I'll pick that one up. Yeah.
Cool. Neil and Galita want a Digbeth dining club type of venue. Timothy Griffiths said, well, we could have an opera house, as Compton Verney had the money to build an opera house and maybe they didn't get planning permission. Could we? Louise is like, this looks incredible, really amazing and so well thought out. So generally, I think everybody's feeling very positive. Rosemary Good said, was wondering about the park and ride. I presume there is provision with all the new out of town housing.
Yes, there is. There's a park and ride in the local plan that is at the moment provided at the back of the Grays Mallory roundabout, the police station there, the highway patrol base, if you're familiar with it. So yes, and that is to be funded by those housing developments to be put in. What we're keen on is putting in place an electric or hydrogen even bus network, so that we use the park and ride to bring people into town with clean air, not more diesel. Thank you very much. But we're interested also in park and rides to the north and also on the A425 as you come in from Southam in that direction. There's quite a lot of traffic comes that way, and it might be an opportunity for people working in town to park there. But we've got to make it work for them. It's got to be viable, financially viable, sensible, attractive. Not make it too much stick, a lot more carrot, if you like, in that equation.
Adrian Gaines would like to know what the plans are for Bath Street.
Good. Well, at the moment, there's two options the county council are working on with us, but and I can't yet confirm which way it's going. So there's, but it's really to do with configurations of cycle provision and also what's happening with the transport hub for particularly for buses at that end of town. So watch this space. As soon as we get more information, we'll share it, but it's not entirely within our domain.
A lot of questions around, and my apologies, I'm rushing through them with aware of the time. Clearly, the pedestrianisation of the High Street and the potential plans for the High Street Fund, there's a huge amount of comments on that. I can't go through them all at the moment. Could you tell us how we could input into that or comment on them after this?
Super. Well, Carol, if you're able to send me the chat, I'd be grateful for that, and I'll certainly share that with the teams working on these schemes. The other point is, please email me. I mean, I know I get enormous amounts of email, but quite often I'm able to direct them to the right offices. My email address, it's pretty straightforward. It's andrew.day, D-A-Y, obviously, hopefully, nice and short, at warwickdc.gov.uk. And I'd welcome all feedback, Carol.
Thank you. I think there's a lot around there. If you don't mind, I'm not going to go into each one because I think they're very specific questions. So I'm just going to leave with two final questions at the moment. I think a lot of people are asking, where are you going to meet? You know, will the town hall be used for concerts and big meetings?
Yeah. No, well, again, council meetings, we've managed to survive online. It's not my favourite way of meeting, I might add, but and we do need to come together. But we've got the pump rooms and the assembly, rooms in there, so we could look at that. And we've got to remember that we are looking at merging, and I hope agreeing to merge with Stratford District Council, and we'll be moving likewise our offices out of Riverside House. We don't need, as I believe, quite the size of office we've got there presently. And when we're in the process of putting our teams together with Stratford District, they may also not need to be in Leamington Spa, or there may be clusters. Just on that, my own preference, and this is just my view, is to actually create, if you like, touchdown like hubs where in each town across South Warwickshire, so Leamington and Warwick, there's a space where residents can meet with council officers, and there can be, cluster meetings with our own officers based, and so every town has much closer access to our local government resources, rather than having them siloed in a building on an industrial park somewhere. That would be my own vision for it.
Wonderful. And the final comment goes to Jonathan Nichols, who was talking about the fact that we can seek inspiration from other places and other cities that have done similar plans, or look at actually other places that have successful models. So on that note, I'm going to hand back to lovely Sydney.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that, Carol, and thank you for everybody's questions. Now, if you want to let us all see you all now, and if you've got any feedback, polite feedback on Andrew's question about the parade and shared space and space in front of the town hall, would you like to unmute yourselves and raise a hand? And I will try and I've got a list of participants here. There are so many of you, it's wonderful. Trying to see you all, and who's got a hand raised is a bit difficult. So you might just, it's probably easier if you just shout out politely. If you've got any feedback for Andrew about the future of the parade.
Can I just say, Sydney, if I could just comment briefly that I thought Jonathan Nichols' point about learning from elsewhere, there's no point reinventing the wheel. So I'm really keen that we get some live, in action. If we're going to make changes, let's make sure they're right and that they've proven right elsewhere. So because it's public money, and we don't want to just become an experimental design centre on these things. No.
Sydney, it's Jonathan here. Can I?
Hello.
Hi. Just on that last point, if I may, just elaborate quickly. It's something about the identity of the town that we want to promote through these projects. And if we understand what we want Leamington to be over the next period, and what will make it distinctive, what kind of town do we want it to be, then we understand what projects we want to do. And my point on chat, I was trying to do it with one finger, so it's probably garbled, is actually Gidderminster is fine, but there are some fantastic examples on the continent of towns that have transformed themselves of the similar size to Leamington, and that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, as Andrew says. It doesn't cost a lot of money to go and to organise trips to those places, to meet with the people who did the town planning, the master planners, all of that, and get their ideas and think about how they might translocate. It's something that I got very involved in a previous job in Cambridge when we were developing a whole new district. And we spent a lot of time traveling around and getting good ideas with our master planner about what we wanted it to be like. And I really, really encourage Andrew to open up the eyes of the officers and our partners to that kind of suggestion. Thank you.
Good thought. I totally
Thank you
agree.
very much.
Sorry, can I speak?
Yes,
Robin,
yes.
Robin Cathcart. I think it would be quite easy to assume when thinking about the parade that it's going to be more or less as it is now. But one thing we have to understand is that not just the effect of COVID, but the effect of online retailing, the whole future of town centres is changing. And we actually must try to design the parade for the future use rather than what's happening today. And it would be quite dangerous, I think, to assume that there's still going to be the same shopping pattern. It is not going to be the same. And we have to design for what we expect to be there. And we may get it wrong, but at least it's better than designing for what's there now and looking backward rather than forward.
I
Here.
quite agree. And that's certainly why we want to see the dust settle a little after what we've been through before making major commitments around the parade. We've got plenty else there to get on with just at the minute. But I would really welcome a constructive public debate on this across our whole community, because I've seen in my own home city in Brisbane, Australia, where I went to university many years ago, they took their main high street, Queen Street Mall it's called, and it became a vibrant destination for the arts, for bands, for the school bands to play, for restaurants, entertainment, the retail, cinemas, artistic activities. It was really spectacular. I mean, that was 30 years ago. There will be the right solution for Leamington Spa. And I think if we work at it together, we can do something that's just right for Leamington. But it's not about imposing what's done elsewhere.
Thank you. Marianne, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask a question. You had your hand up.
I did. Is there any planning for public transport? Because not everybody walks or cycles, particularly if they're old or coming from a long way away or are disabled or have children and so on. So people do need cars, buses, trains and so on. Is there any planning for that to be improved and made more coherent or not?
Yes, thank you. Good question. I mean, I live in Bishop's Tatchbrook and our bus service is both infrequent and expensive. So I'm really keen working with the county council to bring on electric buses, probably smaller and more frequent. And they should have a priority in our towns to bring access right to the shop door if possible, so that people can get in and out and around and keep our air clean. So I think that's the direction of travel. How quickly we get there. The Coventry system has been approved, so we'll have town travel coming into Leamington. What we need to do is get the infrastructure in place and work with the county council so that the future contracts are for electric vehicles.
And frequent and going on for a long time, because public transport tends to die at about 7 o'clock in the evening, which means going out for a meal or going to the cinema, you have to take the car.
Yes. No, my parents live in Melbourne, Australia, with a tram system. And when I look back at the history of Leamington, what a loss that was in so many ways. So I'm familiar with that. It needs to be such, you don't need to look at a timetable. You just walk out and within minutes, there's convenient, clean, and you can, through things like passes and if you like, group travel type ticketing, you can make it so you don't even need change. You just get your pass and off you go. But that's going to take a little bit of pain at the other end, because we also need to discourage people from driving in and parking in the car parks. At the moment, it's cheaper to park in our car parks all day than it is to take a single ticket, one-way ticket from a village 3 miles out of Leamington into town.
Well, that's daft.
Correct.
I would agree.
Amen to local shuttle buses around the town, if I live to see it.
I love it. I mean, it means we can have connectivity between the towns more readily as well. The other part is I'm working at the moment, as Jonathan knows, to try the dualling of the railway line to Coventry means that we can have connections to the university which are by rail rather than by bus, and have a university railway station.
That would be great.
So that takes all those buses off the road.
Mm.
Andrew, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yes, certainly.
You mentioned a lot about the IT of Leamington Spa and the Centre of Excellence. Are you using IT technology now to make the best designs and consultation? Because 3D modelling and everything else has come on leaps and bounds. So whereas all your displays are 2D in your presentation,
yes,
I think you ought to be using the latest technologies to give
I'd love
people.
to. No, Andrew, I'm absolutely with you there. So it's back to fundamentals, though. For today, I simply grabbed a whole stack of slides from pre-COVID and a few others and jumbled them up, and hopefully, this is me. I'm sorry, you know, a 60-year-old guy fiddling with his computer. So I've done my best for you tonight, but I really do agree with you. And we've done it. I mean, just on the IT front, as a council, effectively, in the space of a week, we had everybody out and set up. That's nearly 600 council officers working from home, and to keep our services running. We've got a new ICT head of service just started this month in January, and I'm really keen that we take on that form of technology so that we can see it in the three-dimensional at your eye height rather than maps from above. We can explore the spaces and understand them before we actually have to change or build anything.
But I think it'd be a good challenge to some of the local companies. They're doing 3D modelling all the time, and they'll have the technology, and they could probably do it free in their sort of lunch times rather than paying expensive consultants to just put 5 ideas on the table rather than 3.
I'm with you. I think a great idea.
Timothy, you have a hand up.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say that hello, Andrew, and sounds wonderful. Unfortunately, I'm not resident. I've moved to Wellesbourne, so I'm still a member of the society. So I'm watching from afar. But I was one of the many people that was involved in pushing for the cultural quarter back in the 90s when Jeff Watkin did the document Creating Access, which set off the original idea for the cultural quarter. And I know there's been a lot of people over what's nearly 30 years now desperate to involve professional visual artists and creatives in at some level, which of course means postgraduate level individuals, which of course would mean affordable studio spaces and so forth. And I can see what the issue is. You've got to find tenants that can pay the rent. That's obviously stop. That's why the wonderful idea, for instance, of in the Spencer Street Church and Opera House, because I know that historically Compton Verney wanted to build one. Could you put the two together? But that will not happen. It'll be to do with the digital industries as well, which obviously is a lot of jobs and there's a lot of people on board. But it will be a great shame after all that effort from the cultural quarter activity of different individuals and different organisations, Leamington Studio Artists, et al., Loft Theatre, if the creatives are sort of pushed to one side. It is a massive marketing opportunity, and if we're going to go post sort of a post retailing environment where we're looking at events, people come to visit the town to eat and to go to theatre and to go to performance and to go to music venues and so forth, that will also ought to include arts and design. And we do need retail gallery space or opportunities at least for artists of that nature to be operational. And they are massive marketing opportunity. We've missed so many marketing opportunities. We could have had a copy of Bath. We could have had an opportunity. We could have had the cultural quarter up and running 10 years ago of some sort. So many opportunities have been lost by jumping and jiving about. And it's a marketing thing. The one thing leads to the other. If we're not going to have modern retailing in the current format in the future, which has been discussed, we were discussing this around Archie Marion's table 20 years ago. There's a Leamington Society committee when we were all a bit younger, And we said, you know, the internet's coming, retail's going to change. We've known this for 20 years, and this idea of long-term planning and what is the future of retailing, what is the future of high street. Parade used to be residential property. So we know it was one thing once in the past, and it will move again. So we need to be thinking of what is not next year, not 5 years, what's going to be happening in 10 years. Because once you've spent that money, and when these big, massive funds, the only reason government's giving you the money is it's Commonwealth Games, and you've got the City of Culture in Coventry, and they've got to make the place look good. So
Timothy,
exploit
thank you.
that.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know whether Andrew wishes to respond.
Well, just briefly to say, I've spent my whole professional life trying to help charities do big capital projects, and the challenge is really about building confidence and starting, if you like, building a momentum. And it's been 17 years to get that first phase of Spencer's Yard to the planning committee. And because we've worked together across the whole council, all the parties, and we've listened and worked really hard together, it is now coming forward. I hope that builds some confidence. But I do agree with you, to try and get long-term planning in any domain at the moment is extraordinarily difficult. In setting a direction of travel, though, with the work you did 20 years ago, Timothy, and others, fulfilling on that, at least getting the first stage up, I don't want to lose the momentum. That means working even harder at communicating and taking on good ideas. So we're going to do our best, but there's many people here today that are part of that process. So it's not just about me, of course.
Thank you. I think for our last question, Jane Knight, you had your hand up.
Oh, just a very quick one. I'm just sure from what you've been saying whether we're definitely not going to have cars in the parade anymore. And second, totally unconnected point, I know a lot of young people making music, and a lot of people in the past coming to Leamington, Africans, all sorts, to make music, but there's nowhere to do it. And if that can be included in the plan for culture.
Yeah. Jane, good to see you. Jane came out when chairman of the district and opened a project I'd worked on for 12 years, our first village hall in Bishop's Tatchbrook. Could you believe it? We didn't have one, but very fond memories of that, Jane. No, to answer your first question, there is nothing definite about what I was talking tonight for the parade. I was really wanting to promote some debate and seek your views, but it is a matter that we should address, to the very points Timothy was making around looking long term and imagining how to bring the best out of that special space. So there's nothing definite there. So far, I'm also ambitious with others around what happens with the spa centre. You'll notice I didn't mention that tonight. That's because I really don't know, but it is in a fantastic location. It's a building that really needs investment. It's had some investment, but it could be so much more for the town. So I'm really keen to move on and see what's possible there and how that relates to the town hall and to those artistic needs for music that you referred to. I wish the weather was like it was in Queensland here a bit more. We might be more reliable outdoors, but we need a space like the Spa Centre, performance space.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. And Andrew, thank you so much for a very enlightening evening and with so much food for thought. And I do hope people will think about ways for the parade, Spa Centre, whatever. We will publicise Andrew's email if you didn't have a chance to write it down, and get back to him in due course. Don't expect him to reply immediately, though. I dread to think how many emails he receives every day. But we are very grateful to you for coming, giving up your time, doing it so willingly, cheerfully and positively. Yeah. Thank you very much indeed, Andrew. You can't see us, hear us anyway. And just before we finish, Carol, would you like to give us details of our next meeting?
Yes, thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Sydney, for chairing a great meeting, and to all of you for being here. It's wonderful to see so many people. These events are brought to you by the committee who run the Society. They're a really hard-working group, and if you're not a member, please do join, because it's a great organisation, and it's only £10 for a single person or £15 for a family. Absolutely amazing value. Our next speakers are, and sorry, you can join via the website, leamingtonsociety.org. Lovely Archie keeps that beautifully fresh and populated, and the lots of details that Clive also puts on Facebook. So we have lots of different ways that you can learn about us. Our next two talks are going to be on Thursday, the 18th of February. We have Nigel Shanahan, who is the founder of 1 Mill Street, a very exciting co-working space in Leamington, which is really, really brilliant to go into. When actually it's possible, please do pop in there for a coffee and just be wowed by how awesome it is. But it's also got a very interesting history of the building. He's going to share that with us. This will be followed by Abby Plum on March the 18th. She is a gamer, works in the gaming industry, and is an advocate for women in gaming. This will be followed in April by Stephanie Kerr, who is the director of Bin Leamington, who will be talking about actually also future plans and the high street. So there's lots of different things happening. There's a great newsletter which comes out 4 times a year, which keeps you involved in all these different conversations.